everyone, and welcome. I'm Katie Ferguson from Cottage Paper, and today we're going to make a really fun Halloween card. And it's going to be a fun fold, which is kind of interesting because last month I did a video of a fun fold and said I never do fun fold cards. So here I'm doing two in a row. But I think they both are very special. I think this one is really special. So here is my card. And then here is, on the outside a traditional A2 card. And then here is the fun fold part. I hope you can see what it looks like. I'll try to hold it up for you. And you can see what's going on inside there. And it is not that hard to make. It's just a lot of little steps. So first we're going to make the outside of the card, which is just a regular A2. And then we'll get to the goodies on the inside. I'll put it right here. So you start with two regular A2 size pieces of cardstock, a basic gray piece and a black piece, 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. So first we're going to work with the basic gray piece because that's the outside of the card. Now I used Gingham Cottage DSP, and I'm going to show you this DSP. It won't take a long time, but I'm going to show it to you. This DSP is in the annual catalog when it first came out, and I thought I just can't justify it. It's 48 pieces of paper. I just can't justify 48 pieces of DSP. But I just kept going back to it, and I finally got it, and I'm so glad I did because it's perfect for this card. So here are the pieces. It's all plaids. So there's this one, and then this is on the other side. There's a gray, pink, I think. I'm not sure if that's Petal Pink or Blushing Bride. Here's black, a small one and a big one. Here's a gray and black one. And you see some of them are on the diagonal. The one we're using today is going to be diagonal. Some are not on the diagonal. Maybe this is, not sure what color that is either. I'm going to read off the colors to you when I finish. I'm going to take a break and go get the colors. I just love these big bold plaids. I like the little bitty checks too. Like this one. Here's the one we're using today. And there's the back of it. Okay, so that's our paper. And I'm going to go get the colors and I will be right back. Okay. I have the big pack of paper, and the colors are Basic Gray, Black, Blushing Bride. I suspected that was Blushing Bride. Calypso Coral, Garden Green, Mint Macaron. I wondered about that. Pumpkin Pie, Real Red, Smoky Slate, So Saffron, and of course there's a lot of white in all those colors, all those pages. Okay, so this is our the outside of our card. This is our first piece. You can do these however you like. I decided I wanted a big reveal of the gray, but it's all personal preference. So the pumpkin pie, the DSP is 3 1/2 by 4 3/4. So we're going to glue it to the pumpkin pie layer, and the pumpkin pie layer is 3 5/8 by 4 7/8. And I know if you're like me, you hate dealing with 8s, and it's even worse dealing with 16s. But I kind of like that little bitty thin layer that you see underneath when you just have an 1/8 of an inch difference in the measurements. Brush it. I brush it with my bone folder. Okay, now we're going to adhere it to the basic gray card base. You can decide if you want it this way or if you want it this way. I do like this diagonal though. I thought it was particularly good for Halloween. Looks like a gold piece of glue right there. And I've said this before, it took me a long time to learn to love this Tombow liquid multi-liquid glue, but I do love it now. Okay, so that's pretty basic. So then I decided I wanted it to say boo. And I did not have I wanted a large boo. I didn't have a large boo stamp. So I played around and looked around. And I came across my Biggest Wish stamp set. And it had a really nice O right here and a really nice B right there. So I decided I would try using the B and the O. So I stamped the B and it went great. I just happened to have a strip of 1-inch white cardstock, and that's what I stamped it on. And then I stamped, that's not this one. This is not on 1 inch. This is a wider piece. On this one, this is 1 inch. And then I stamped the O, and it was like, oh, it didn't stamp solid. Well, I can use my Stamparatus and put it on there and stamp it multiple times and it'll be solid. But then as I looked at it, it was like, I kind of like that, particularly for Halloween. I don't know if we can get it to focus. I don't know if you can tell how distressed it is. So I decided that was pretty neat. I will say that the birthday stamp had been used previously. The Hello stamp had not been. And when you have a brand new photopolymer set, sometimes there's some manufacturing residue on the stamps. And that's why Stampin' Up! Recommends that you stamp a couple of times on scratch paper before you use the stamp on your project. And this is, I think, the remnants of that. That's what's going on here. So then I played around with it a bunch. And I stamped multiple times with B's, multiple times O's. I have a whole pile of them over here somewhere. I have a bunch of them I played with, tried different techniques. And I decided when the stamp was had a little bit of hand oil on, oil from your hands, a little bit dirty. You know, our stamps get dirty over time. That's why sometimes the red rubber stamps that we have now, the ones we had previously don't stick to your block. It's because if your stamp is dirty or your block is dirty. And a lot of people didn't use the image sheet because their stamps would stay better on the block. But it was just because their stamp was dirty or their block was dirty that it wouldn't stick. So I did this multiple times. In order to ink it, you could mask it and use your ink pad, but I just used my marker, my basic black marker, and I think that maybe that also affected the way it worked. And we're going to try this one. I don't know this one. I just rubbed it with my hands, but I don't know that it'll do anything. So it looks kind of solid, but not totally. And then I'm going to let it sit for a little while. And it kind of spreads out a little bit. Now on this Hello, there's really not much of a problem coloring just that O, because there's some space here between the O and the L, as you can see, except for right here. With the B, it is right up against that I. And so I used a piece of Scotch removable tape. You can also use Post-it tape. You could use a Post-it note. And I don't know that you can tell, and I'm not sure I can tell. But it's not, there are areas where it's not, the ink is not there. Now, of course, over time, the ink is going to dry. It's not going to dry and not come off because the ink will never stick. A regular ink will never stick to these stamps. But it's not going to be as good. It's going to be dry on here. You can wipe it off, but it'll be dry. So after a few minutes, after you wait a little bit, then you just huff on it. To sort of moisten the ink. And I don't think we're going to have the best here, but we'll see what we've got. I'm just going to stamp. And I just realized I didn't put my mat underneath, my cushion mat underneath, which I should have always with clear stamps. You should have, now I don't know if you can see that one. That one's not one of my favorite ones, but it gives you an idea. And I thought it was great for Halloween. I thought it was wonderful. I loved it. So, I have stamped these. Here is one. And then I'm going to just use some scissors and approximate 1 inch wide. And it doesn't have to be centered. It doesn't have to be perfect because it's Halloween. And then I cut it on the diagonal. Now you don't want them all just alike. So here's the bee, and I'm going to cut it more like this. So there's the bee. Okay, I went to get my die set, which was on my table, but I had misplaced it somewhere in here. And in the meantime, I used a different O, and went ahead and glued mine down. Now, the thing I need to point out to you is that the middle one, whenever you have 3 like this, you need to put the middle one down first, adhere it first, so then you know how much space you have on the left and right for the next 2. So that's what I did. So then I'm using the Scary Silhouettes dies, and here they are, except for the bats, which the bats are still over on my die cutting machine. So I cut out a bunch of bats. Here they are. Here's some other pieces I have for other things we're going to use. So this set has like 3 large bats, 3 tiny bats. I think I've got this right. And a couple of middle-sized bats. So just play around with them and put them the way you want. You could just have 3. As you can see, originally I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I had 6. We're not going to worry about all of those right now. I think that's kind of how I did it. And then I had these little ones. So I'll adhere those down later. So that's the front of the card. And I just love this boo. I hope you like it too. So then we have the inside. And of course, this is the inside we're going for. So what we do is we take a piece of a regular size card, it's just a regular card, A2 card, piece of black, and you're going to score it down the middle, just exactly like you always do. Score it down the middle, and then we're going to score from each side. We're going to flip it over so that you always need to, as Julie DiMatteo says, you need to turn the valley into a mountain. So we're going to score it in the middle, and then we're going to flip it over, and we're going to do 2 1/8 from each side, 2 1/8 from this side, and 2 1/8 from this side. So what we essentially have done is to cut this into 4, well, not cut it, but separate it and scored it into 4 pieces of the same size. Now, we're not going to fold it yet. Then what we're going to do next is, you see we have this die. We have this die. We'll use that one in a minute. We're going to take this die, which is just trees, and we're going to put it in the middle of this card. Now, I sort of centered mine up and down, but you definitely want to center it left and right. I didn't really measure it, but you may want to measure it. And then I would recommend you stick it down with Post-it tape or with Post-it removable tape, and then run it through your die cutting machine. And when you do that, you'll end up with this. So is it starting to look familiar? There that is. Okay, next I got a piece of pumpkin pie cardstock, and I put this same piece down there, and then this outside area I put here and worked on centering it. And again, taping it down. Make sure all these little margins are exactly the same. Run it through your die cutting machine. And you'll eventually end up with a piece like this. Now when you first take it out of the die cutting machine, you're going to have these these tree limbs on here. So you just take a pair of your snips and just trim those off. Now it's a little bit tedious, and you can kind of see right here there's a little bump. It's not perfectly straight, but I don't think anybody's going to pay attention to it. So then what we're going to do is we're going to adhere it and make a frame. I just thought the card needed a little something extra. It took me it came to me in the middle of the night. I started this a couple of days ago, and it came to me in the middle of the night. Oh, I just need to put an orange pumpkin pie frame around it. Okay. So there we are with that. And what we're going to need to do now is we're going to need to score this pumpkin pie piece right here. So I'm going to take it over to the score, I simply scored, and just score right there. I could use this, but I think I'd feel better if I did it to score on the scoreboard. I will be right back. Okay, you might have been able to just do that with just folding it, but I felt better scoring it. Okay, now at this point you could go ahead and do your folds, but we might as well go ahead and finish the rest of this piece while it's flat. Okay, now I've got this glued down, adhered down, and if you'll see from this one, originally I was planning to do this and have it pop up, but I didn't like the look of this. I wanted to have this a little bit of a border around it. So, and you'll notice this does not lie flat. We could do it this way and it would lie flat, and we could fold it and it would pop up, but I liked it being not flat, not being able to go flat. Now, of course, obviously it goes flat like this to put it in the envelope, but it doesn't go flat when it is laying down. So what I ended up doing was I looked at this and thought, okay, I want this reveal to be kind of like this. So I didn't do anything to the sides. I left them the same and just scrunched them in, but I took 1/4 of an inch off the top and 1/4 of an inch off the bottom. It just depends on how much of reveal you want and how you want to do it. So I'm going to go cut this right now and take 1/4 of an inch off the top or 1/4 of an inch off the bottom. Okay, I've now taken 1/4 of an inch off of the top and the bottom. So the card will be like this. All right, so now before we fold it, I'm going to go ahead and put on this side, you have to kind of look for your score lines. You want to center it. This on the right, on the left. And then on the right, I'm going to have this piece right here, which is a piece of pumpkin pie cardstock, which is 1 7/8 inches by 3 1/4 inches. And then down at the bottom, as part of this die cut set, there is a cat right here, a cat with his back up. And so I have cut out the cat, and I put a piece of the metallic and shimmer specialty paper. At the very top, it's just plain shimmer. Pumpkin pie is one of the colors. You get 12 sheets of 6 by 6. It's a 6 by 6. It has something else going on down at the bottom, and 3 different colors, and pumpkin pie is one of them, and for $5. So that's a pretty good deal. So I know it's hard sometimes to get a glimmer paper to stick to cardstock. So I cut a piece. You can see I cut kind of a long piece so that I had lots of area to glue, and I used this same glue. I was going to use my fine tip glue pen. That's what I used on my original card, and now I can't figure out where it is. So, but I just used this and let it sit and put a block on it and let it sit and dry real well. So we have that piece, and then we have a piece of pumpkin pie that is 1 3/8 by 1 7/8. And then I'm going to adhere that here and put it right here, and then adhere this right here, and adhere this. And I'm going to do that. Okay, I'm back. And I went ahead and decided to fold these, and I realized I probably should have done it before I started gluing these down, because you can see much better where your pieces are supposed to go, and make sure you have an even amount on each side if it's folded. Went ahead and folded this. Now, of course, you may notice we do not have our seam in here, so we need to do that before we glue this down. Okay, how do you know where to adhere this? You want the tippy point I determined on your fold right there. And then how far up, and of course you want this horizontal. How far, where do you want to place this from top to bottom? What you do is you take your piece, your top piece, and center it top to bottom, have your fold lines line up, and then measure how far up to here. And it doesn't have to be exact. This looks like it is 1 1/4, 1 3/8. So it's 1 3/8. So that's just a ballpark. So we can go 1 3/8, and you can get a pencil and mark it. And of course you can erase it after the fact. So I'm going to go out a little bit, and I'm going to do 1 3/8, and just put a tick mark right there. So that's where we're going to put it, is right here, with a point here. Now, if you want to, you can put this on top and make sure you think it's straight. Not straight, it's at the right height. That looks about right. Okay. And as I said, it doesn't have to be precise. Put some on the roofs, some on these columns, some on this roof. Okay. Now, sometimes I also use my tweezers. I think I need a little bit more there. You can use your fingers or your tweezers. I do end up with adhesive on my hands quite frequently. It's a normal state of things, adhesive and ink. Although we have used very little ink this time. So put the point right there, level it, make it parallel to the I do have a fancier ruler. We'll just use this and see if it looks on each side about the same amount. So that looks pretty good. Now we can stick this on top. Place this on top and see if it still looks about right. And it does. Okay, so now we need a moon. I did a moon and a bat. You can do whatever you want to. The moon is again part of this same die set. So you want the moon to show through the trees, so but I don't think that's going to be a problem. So just decide where to put it. Someone told me that a quarter moon is not would never be like this. Of course, I said it depends on where you are in the world, I would think, but that's much more visually appealing. So we're going to go with that and not go with science. And if you feel like you get too much adhesive sometimes, which I feel like I have, I'm going to take a little tissue and I'm just going to blot it a little bit, because we don't want it, if you can see me doing that, we don't want it oozing out. So I'm going to blot it off a little bit. And then kind of figure out where you want to put it. I think it needs to be a little bit higher. Now, as you see, I have glue, or maybe you can't see, I have glue on my card. But we're going to take care of that in just a minute. That is not a problem. So we're going to let that dry. And then the bat, I used the littlest bat, so that the others would be too big and I put one here. I figure out where I want to put him, and then I glue him down. There, use my tweezers. Or reverse tweezers. We used to sell reverse tweezers by themselves, and then we didn't have any for a long time. Now there's some available as part of the embossing kit. I do wish they'd sell them by themselves because not everybody necessarily wants to emboss, but in my opinion, every card maker can use a good pair of reverse tweezers. I'm going to stick him about right here. I think that looks good. Now, let's see if this is dry. Not totally dry. Now, I need to score this right here. So I'm going to go do that, and then I'll come back and deal with our adhesive right there. Okay, I scored it. Then I'm going to fold it and finish it with my bone folder. And let's open that up. There it is. Now this is probably dry. Now, if you're not aware of it, there is such a thing as an ink eraser. I've had mine for a long time. Heavens, I've probably had it, I don't know how long I've had it. I want to say 15 years, but that might be a slight exaggeration. Stampin' Up! Used to sell these too, but you can get them on Amazon. It's just called, an adhesive eraser. I don't know what I said, but you don't want to disturb your moon. I don't know if you saw it to begin with, or if you could tell it's gone now, but it is gone now, and that's a handy tool. Now this obviously did not get enough ink in it, so another handy tool I use is a toothpick. I'll put a little bit of glue. I have a scrap piece of cardstock here. I'll put just a dab of glue on it. Use the flat end, these are flat toothpicks, flat end of my toothpick. Get some glue on it. Raise this up, stick it under here. Adhere the glue. Now that oozed out, so I'm going to use the pointy end and remove what oozed out. And if there's still an issue, I'll use my glue eraser again. And I use this over and over. You can tell it's kind of dirty. I mean, they're cheap enough. But I always just use the same one for a while. Okay, so there we are. So now we need to attach this to this. So here's what you do. Put the adhesive. I realize, a lot of what I've been doing maybe off camera. You put adhesive on one side, on one of the quarter pieces. And you make sure, it's always good to make sure you've got the front, where the front of the card is. I've done that more than once. And so you put it center it top and bottom, and then you can make the reveal on the side anything you want, but you probably want it to be comparable so that it looks consistent. But the bigger the reveal on the side, the more this is going to stick up, and the less reveal, the flatter it's going to be. So you just make that decision. So then what we're going to do now is we're going to put the adhesive on here. Better not let that go. Take this piece and fold it down. That's how you get it straight and even. And there you are. Now the last thing I did was to put a couple of black classic matte dots. Let me close up my glue. I just put a couple right here. I just did that at the last minute. And if you don't know this about a lot of our embellishments, including these, they're very forgiving. If you don't like where they are, you can move them. Occasionally it does tear your paper. But for right now, see, don't push them down. Just move them around until you have them where you want them. There is adhesive on the back. You can do the same. Now this I've already pushed down, but you still can move it a little bit if you want to. Decide where you think it looks the best, how close you want to get them together, and then push them down. Now, I debated on this because it is going to make a bump on your card and it is going to make an indentation in here. But I just thought it added so much, and of course we had so much thickness already. And I have not put my bats on. But there you have it. Boo! And you write your message here. I think it's really a cute card, and I hope you do too. It is time consuming, but as you can see, it's really not that complicated. I hope you all play around with this idea and with this scary silhouette stamp set, and hope you all have a good Halloween. So there it is. I hope you all play around with it a little bit on the scary silhouette stamp set, and I hope you have a good Halloween. Happy Halloween. Until next time, bye-bye.